Tesla shares ending today lower. CEO Elon Musk announcing late Friday that he will keep the company public after an infamous tweet on August 7th that he was considering taking the automaker private.
He also gave an emotional interview to the New York Times, leaving some investors to worry about his ability to continue at the helm of Tesla. Would it be good for Tesla if someone other than Musk became CEO? Joining us are Jim Press, former Chrysler president, and Willie Pietersen from Columbia School of Business. Jim, I'll start with you. You're of the view that he needs to remain as CEO of Tesla, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. He's really the visionary, he's a creative genius, and his imprint is definitely on the company, but he's got to stay high enough to be strategic and let somebody else worry about the day-to-day business. Number two makes a lot of sense.
Well, meantime, Willie, you think it could be time to rethink things?
Yeah, totally. I don't think he necessarily needs to leave the company, but he needs to reconsider the way he runs the company. I think the truth of the matter is this classic dilemma of whether the original visionary can lead a large, complex organization with a lot of operating problems. I think the truth of the matter is that leadership is a team sport. It's not a solo effort. And I think if you show me a successful company, I'll show you a leader that can build a strong team. Judging from Elon Musk, he seems to be overwhelmed and emotionally exhausted. And I don't think he's establishing a strong team underneath him. I don't think that's a recipe for success.
Jim, we had some analysts come out and basically call into question Musk's credibility and the credibility of Tesla in light of everything we've seen in the last couple of weeks. In that New York Times story, he suggested that they were looking for a COO, and then there's a spokesperson comment, I think in Reuters just today, that an active COO search is not underway. How important would that be in terms of, I guess, adding more credibility to this company right now?
Well, I think it's important. The product makes it credible. The customer base, the success they're having, the technology, there's no question that he's onto something, but executing it is really difficult. And the challenge they're going to have is with this Model 3 is moving from a low volume to a high volume model. And that really takes an awful lot of additional management and pressure. You know, he has a good number two at SpaceX. It obviously works there. He's got a lot of other irons in the fire, and it seems logical as this company grows to bring in somebody to worry about growing the company, operating it day to day, and letting him really focus on strategy. Makes it valuable.
Willie, you mentioned the classic kind of dilemma when an entrepreneur and a startup build into a much bigger company. One of the factors that often stops them transitioning is that the founder doesn't want to let go of the reins.
Absolutely.
Might this now be a moment in time where the board can convince him to let go of some of the reins? And if so, what would be the ideal structure from your perspective to get investors kind of happy again with the leadership there?
Well, I agree with Jim, what he's just said. I think it needs a very strong number two. You've got models of success already, I think. If you look at Bill Gates, he had Steve Ballmer, who was an extremely good operator and then took over the CEO job. If you look at Steve Jobs, he had Tim Cook. There's a good recipe there. Obviously, that worked. So I think that's a fundamental. But that alone is not enough. I think we have to think about, it's not a solo, it's a choir. You need to have a strong team that plays all the roles, just like a good football team would. All the positions are played well. So it's back to this point that it's just not a solo sport, nor is it just two people who can do the whole thing. It's team building, I think, at an executive level that's critically important here.
Mike, when we consider the always polarizing debate we have on this stock, like we had in the first hour, it seems almost everyone, though, is agreed that the stock can benefit, whether you're a bull or a bear, can benefit from some kind of change in leadership.
Yeah.
If we did see a change that meant he stayed involved, so the people that believe he's the genius behind the company don't get bearish, but also there was the operational help. How much could that be worth in stock price terms? Are we talking back to 420?
I don't think we get there in one step, just because that has to prove that it works in demonstrating the production remains on track, and so all the tangible things that you want to look for. But I do think it'll be well received, and perhaps even just refreshing the board or enlarging the board with a little more outside expertise. In addition to the examples that Willie gave, you have Google, you have Facebook. I mean, Google was interesting, right? The founders stepped back, they got an adult supervision in the form of a new CEO, and then he moved on, and so they retook control. It's not as if somebody has to truly be kind of set out to pasture if you're a founder like Elon Musk, who I believe also has the title of chief engineer at this moment as well.
Jim, what about Twitter? It seems like it's gotten to Elon Musk into some trouble. recently. Is that something that the company and that the board should be taking a closer look at in terms of implementing a policy, given the fact that it is such a chief means of communication for him?
Yeah, I think in a lot of companies, and there are a lot of examples where Twitter has become this direct line of public communication. And in a good company with governance, you've got coordination, and you're working through a communication strategy within the organization. It seems to me that Twitter needs to go through a more formal channel to be part of exactly what the company's saying. Individually, what he wants to say is different from what he's saying representing the company. But Twitter helps instantly communicate. So there's some advantages to it, but it needs to be disciplined. It needs to be throttled in, I think.
Willie, just overall, we always talk about Elon Musk and whether he's been right or wrong in this. What about the board at Tesla? Should they take some rap as well?
Yeah, I think there's a really big governance issue here. I mean, if you think about a board's responsibility of oversight to make sure that there's a strong strategy in place to lead the company to a good place, that there's a team that is able to implement that strategy, and to be able to persuade, if you like, or insist that the CEO, in the interest of the shareholders, undertakes those steps. I think it's a fundamental governance issue and responsibility here, with no question at all.